So we're going to do call to order and a pledge of allegiance. Douglas Bamforth, will you lead us on the pledge?
Everyone please rise if you're able to. Active duty veterans and first responders are allowed to use a hand salute. All others, place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Director Gray? Is
Here.
present. Vice Chair O'Brien? Here. And Chair Dennert?
Here. That brings us to agenda review.
Staff has no recommended changes, Chair.
Chair, can I
Yes.
be heard? I do want to recommend one change. As far as item 9E is concerned, I was going to suggest maybe we put that on a different agenda. I have two reasons for that request. One is the huge length of the agenda and the number of items that we have on there. I'm afraid by the time we get to it, we're going to be discussing Wednesday meetings on Friday morning. But, so I was going to suggest maybe another date. I even looked at the calendar. I thought maybe September 2nd would be appropriate. It's the Thursday before a long weekend, which sort of hits on part of the reason I had it, wanted it on the agenda anyway. So I just wanted to make that request. Perhaps we move it to a future meeting, possibly September 2nd.
Before we discuss that much, I see that we have a couple people here that we're going to present. Does that work for all of them? Paul? Rory?
Oh, yeah. Chair, I think Director Abel is just talking about item 9E, just removing it from the agenda, and we'll add it to the agenda on September 2nd.
That's the San Juan Mountain Conservancy, correct?
No,
No,
that's the...
it's the Wednesday meeting.
Oh.
9E.
9E, I apologize.
Yeah, so it doesn't impact Paul, yeah.
All right.
Just
Okay.
remove that from the agenda and schedule it for September 2nd at the director's request. So we'll just need consensus from the board on that change to the agenda.
That's good for me.
All right, thank you.
That brings us to public statements for items not on the agenda. Before we begin that, if you are here to speak on an item on the agenda, I'm going to ask you to just let us know if you're on Zoom so I don't gloss over you or miss you. Is there anybody that's joining our meeting on Zoom that has an item on the agenda they want to speak about later, so I can take a note and make sure to call on you? That brings us to public statements, items not on the agenda. I have some speaker cards here. I assume there might be some more coming my way. Are there any? Before we begin this part, this is our first in-person meeting, not for the staff and board members, but for the public too. And I didn't think it was such a big deal until I walked in and saw everybody. It was kind of exciting. So when we did the pledge and all, it was pretty neat. I've been handing out trail guides on your way out the door tonight. If you want one, grab one, and I encourage you to get out there. We're gonna make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. If I miss it, you'll just raise your hand. We're a more informal group. Douglas Bamforth, we have a microphone. It's your turn.
It's okay, I'm not afraid to go through. What I'd like to speak to you about is the Veterans Rural Plaza.
Doug, I'm sorry, could you push the little button on the mic there? Thank you. Yep, great.
Okay?
Yep.
Anyway, I'm not one of these presentation type with the big screens or anything, but the Veterans Plaza needs an adjustment. We now have another division of the military, the Space Force, and it is an official designation. So therefore, they need a flag. I thought about it, and I think the cheapest way to do it would be to take the pole that the United States flag is on, our flag, and replace that with the Space Force flag. And then the little concrete area in the middle where the eagle is, to put a pole there and put the American flag up there. And you should make the pole about 2 feet higher. That's that for that part. Any questions?
I like that idea of being a, I don't know about the first, but an early park district to honor Space Force.
I like the idea too. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I apologize, board. Can you turn on your mics when you're speaking? I can hear some of you softly.
Sure, I like the idea. I think it's an excellent suggestion.
And what was the next part?
My next little thing is something that has been going on for a long time, and has to do with the youth in the community. Definitely not for us old people. Getting up to date on the BMX track. I was astounded when you put the skateboard thing in and the cost of it. Wow, that was a lot. However, for a BMX track, all you need is someone that's pretty good with a bulldozer, and give them a day, and they can do it. So I don't know what the problem with is as far as the land, if it's if it's infringes on the what they call it, the water table zone or whatever. But I think that would be a good addition, even if the water comes in. Hey, get a bulldozer out there and straighten it out. And I think that's something that needs to get back on track. I don't want to see these kids just sitting around idle. They need to be doing something, and you provide a lot of good programs for them, but I think that would be one more. We used to have a really good program. I know my son, I made him go to it, then he loved it. And we did it. Out of that came a world champion. And so I think that we should get that going again also. That's it.
So I just wanted to make one comment. It's not on our agenda tonight, but I just wanted to say, I appreciate everything you're saying, except one thing I do need to correct you on is that a BMX track would actually cost us, because we've had this discussion, a lot more than the skate park did. So just so that you're aware of that.
Just so you're aware, we got the price down to about 1.2 million, and that didn't include any land because we have to do water and sanitation and road improvement and a building and several environmental documents. So it turned out to be more complicated.
I don't know, but I don't know what the last one cost, but I know it wasn't anywhere near that.
Well,
that was done by the parents.
Well, that started long before there were a lot of requirements for a conditional use permit and public hearings and the whole regulation thing. So that's where we are today.
All right, thank you. The world has become more complicated. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Flo Trapini. It's your turn. And Flo, you correct me on the pronunciation of your last name,
It's
please.
Trapani.
Trapani. But I said it wrong.
Hi, I'm Flo Trapani. Simi resident this week for 50 years. Been part of Park and Rec for a very long time, through myself, through my daughter. And I'm here for pickleball tonight. So we are trying to get more courts made at Duck Park. I don't know much about taking away from tennis, and I don't want to be that kind of person, but pickleball has grown, has continued to grow. There's always people waiting to play. Gary Gossett and Todd Johnson here are instructors and have instructed probably hundreds of people, and it's just more and more and more. Are we on camera? Oh my God.
Our view count on YouTube is usually not very high, don't worry.
Okay.
It's going up now.
Pickleball, I've been playing, I think, about 10 years. I've come to every meeting that we've had to try to get more courts. It is like I said, I moved here 50 years ago. I was a freshman in high school. I'm applying for Medicare next month. So I have played sports my whole life, and pickleball is great for the seniors. It's great for everyone. But, really the seniors that can't play other sports like we used to. I had a knee replacement 7 weeks and 2 days ago, and I was back on the court yesterday because that is all I wanted to do. I wanted to get back to pickleball. I worked my butt off in physical therapy to get back to pickleball. But I'm not the only person. The pickleball players here all have passion, and so the reason I am asking you guys to look at expanding Duck Park is because and I'm sure you guys researched, it is just so many people are playing the sport, so inexpensive, and for your physical health and your mental health, it's terrific. So thank you for your time.
Flo, we do have some good news in the short term, that the schools will be reopened very soon. I know that doesn't meet all the need, but we're interested in that. Dan, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so since COVID started, we do have access to school campuses for pickleball courts. The large one is at Sinaloa, which was activated on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's 12 courts, and that's been closed.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is get that reopened. We have talked to the school district. They're going to allow us to do that. We also have the option to potentially look at some midweek access on the school campuses, which we haven't used in the past. So what I'd recommend to the board, I know we're not, the direction your staff is heading is to activate the school campus courts and see if that relieves the pressure. I'm sure that people that were using those are coming to Rancho Simi and Tapo, right? I want to see, once we open those school campus courts, if that will relieve some of the
That's
pressure.
going to help this much.
Yeah.
But it's still going to help. So, okay.
Right, I'm going to do this because this has come up at a few meetings now. I know there's probably other people here to speak on this tonight. I actually would like to see this as a future agenda item. I look back on it, and it seemed like we did the best we could at the time, but when I look back on when we converted some tennis courts to pickleball courts at the Duck Park, it seemed like we were probably falling short of the need. Probably a similar thing could be said with Oak Park. So I would like to have it on a future agenda to find out what the cost would be of converting additional courts. And I'd like to see the two scenarios, one to where they're multi-use courts and one to where the tennis courts become pickleball courts. And then, when we feel we're comfortable making that presentation, let the pickleball community know, and what's left of a fast becoming extinct tennis community that I used to be part of, let them know as well too. I'm out there at the parks all the time, and it's just the fact. Pickleball is just like trouncing tennis in terms of popularity. We've had this again. The past few months, we've had this come up at several meetings. I think the time has come to take another look at that. So I appreciate it.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you.
And I did see you on Facebook, but you and your doubles partner lost your first game back.
Yeah, because he lobbed
I'm
me.
sorry, I shouldn't have told
Yeah, you don't have to bring that up.
And I'm being mature my first day back. I'm not chasing lobs. Now I'm playing tomorrow. I may not be so mature.
So thank you, board. We will get a date for that, and we'll advertise the date once we have it and bring it back in relatively short order.
Can I just comment?
There's another speaker on the same item. Do you want to comment now or after them?
No, just regarding pickleball. I know how passionate everybody is on pickleball, and we have the same issue in Oak Park, but I just want to be clear that you were here at the meeting with the tennis folks, so it is extremely sensitive, and I think the cost per court at Rancho Temple was somewhere around $100,000 to create that park. So just to keep things in perspective.
There's another speaker, Maxim. And Maxim, if you choose to, will you say your last name for us?
Rallis. My name is Maxim Rallis, and I'm resident of Simi Valley. As you know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. Currently, there is
Maxim, can you speak into the microphone a little bit more?
Currently, there is need for additional pickleball courts, and in the future, because the need is growing with the sport, there will be constant demand, and basically we need more courts in order to practice the sport. Earlier today, I electronically submitted to the members of the board a letter and a petition containing 77 signatures connected in one day, supporting a conversion of 2 tennis courts at Rancho Semi-Community Park into 6 designated pickleball courts, or in an alternative, adapting 2 tennis courts into multi-use courts. I know that probably people who play tennis court won't be happy about that, but I observed that tennis courts are almost always empty. Very rarely there are players. For example, I was last night there. 4 tennis courts were dark. In the evening, there is no tennis players. Basically, tennis courts are underused, and the pickleball courts are always crowded. I've heard many times how the school district, has in this school 12 courts, maybe, I don't know, but the truth is they're not available, okay? And not only that, they're not public courts, they're under the supervision and control of the school district. You might negotiate, they might open after 1 month, maybe they will open after 2 months, but maybe they won't open. We don't know that. And currently there is a need, and this need will grow, and not only that, but these courts are open only 2 days a week. They are available Saturday and Sunday, and with again restricted hours. You could not go 7, I believe, in the morning. What they try to say is that's how to say a good excuse not to do anything about that, but doesn't help the people who play pickleball. I would like to ask the board for guidance as to what additional information they need to receive from the pickleball community in order to make decision concerning this matter.
So right now, you've accomplished what you wanted to accomplish tonight. We're going to have this on a future agenda. That's why I had it put there. So for anybody who's here for pickleball, you've accomplished as much as you can. We can't discuss it in detail tonight because it's not on the agenda. I've asked that it be put on a future agenda, and we are going to look at that thoroughly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been a little bit flexible with the time. I wasn't about to cut people off at our first meeting when you could come in person anyways, but we want to make sure that we go slow, we listen to everybody. Is there anybody else that was here to speak on the item not on the agenda? That includes anybody on Zoom? Dan, do you see anybody on Zoom that you think might be here for an item not on the agenda?
I see a Linda. Did Linda want to speak on anything not on the agenda?
No, thanks, Dan. It's Linda Bosley. I'm just here.
Oh, hi, Linda. Okay. That's all I see, Chair.
All right, that's gonna bring us to, last chance, not seeing any hands. That's gonna bring us to approval of minutes.
Move approval of June 9th.
Second.
Do we still need to do a roll call now?
Yeah, the attorney's advised if we're on Zoom, especially with board members, being on Zoom to do a roll call.
Do you know how you call the roll?
Director Abela?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Denners.
Aye. Feel like nobody wanted a trail guide.
Bye. Tomorrow's score different.
Have a nice evening.
And that approves the minutes for items A, B, and C for all three of the meetings, correct?
I think the motion was just for item A.
I think you have to, I think you probably have to do them one at a time. So I'll make the motion for 5B.
I'll second that.
Gina, call the roll.
Director Abela?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Denners.
Yes. That brings us to approval of minutes, item C.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I saw Josh in there somewhere.
Give him the sun.
Director Abela?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Denners.
Yes. That brings us to the consent agenda.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
That would cover A and B, correct?
Yes. Director Abela?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Vice Chair, no, sorry, Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Denners.
Yes.
The motion's all carried with unanimous vote.
Before we move on, if any any member of the public has a really uncomfortable chair, but you want to stick out this meeting, we have another comfortable chair. Does that apply to anybody? All right, change your mind, let me know. That brings us to item 7A, presentation of the full-time employee of the month to Dave DeMaio.
Honorable Chair and members of the board, the full-time employee of the month for June 2021 is Dave DeMaio. Dave is a recreation coordinator in the recreation department. He's worked for the district for 17 years, and this is his second employee of the month award. The person who nominated Dave stated, Dave is deserving of the employee of the month recognition due to the outstanding efforts he made to assist the district during the many stages of the pandemic. He stepped forward during the early reopening to help at Simi Hills Golf Course in accommodating guests in a very safe manner. While his efforts fell outside the scope of his job duties, he still volunteered to do whatever was needed to support staff. Earlier this year, during a later stage of the pandemic, when Dave's normal assignments continued to be impacted by COVID-related restrictions, he again volunteered to help. Amidst staff shortages, Dave jumped up and learned the vacant positions, which was a tremendous help in maintaining the golf course's level of service. Without his efforts, the challenges for the rest of the staff would have been very difficult. We cannot thank Dave enough for his selfless acts and his jump to the rescue attitude. So staff recommends acknowledging Dave's Employee of the Month award with a plaque and a day off, which he will get to use in the next 60 days. And congratulations to Dave.
Chair, if I could, I just wanted to personally commend Dave. He was truly, he stepped up for any need we had. He was also the point person at the skate park that was open during the pandemic. When we opened that, he was on the ground, boots on the ground, talking to kids, communicating out at the skate park for many, many hours. And like Teresa had indicated, he stepped up at the golf course when we had a need out there. So he did an exemplary job with supporting the district, not only in his only job, but he volunteered for everything else. So thank you for that, Dave.
I've been impressed.
Is he on anywhere?
I thought he was.
He was unable to make it this evening.
I was gonna say something, but now I don't even feel like I want to. No. I just want to be brief. Yeah, I think Dave's great too, and I actually was at the skate park when he was doing duty there, and jumping in, and that was awesome. And I remember my initial dealings with Dave, go back years. I remember there was I don't even know what the committee was, because you guys know I don't keep track of the committees, but Dave and Richard were presenting on the team club at Barrelwood Park and did an excellent job and got that thing up and running. And so, right, I think Dave is great and really deserves this. Just too bad he's not even on Zoom for us.
I'm going to guess Dave is at softball practice tonight.
We'll have him watch the video.
Dave was the staff member with his team that handed out those helmets that we provided them.
Oh, right.
So
That's
he did a good job talking to skaters and trying to keep them safe.
Right.
I just noticed how he smiled so easy. It always seems so pleasant, so positive.
Dave, in summary, we like you. Any other member of the public or staff member want to speak on this? That brings us to item B, presentation of the park.
I have a
Josh?
question. It says under recommendation, staff recommends acknowledging. Does that mean we need to vote or make
No.
anything else? Or are we fine?
Just a presentation item.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Josh, thanks. Presentation of the full-time or part-time employee of the month to Andrew Farrell.
Yes, Andrew is a maintenance worker 4 in the Planning and Maintenance Department. He's worked for the district for 1.5 years, and this is his first Employee of the Month award. Andrew shows dedication to his job and is always willing to assist with anything that is needed, including taking extra shifts when he's asked. He's always on time, respectful, ambitious, and willing to learn something new. When Andrew's done cleaning the facilities at our parks, they're always immaculate and fully stocked. Andrew deserves the recognition of Employee of the Month award because of his commitment to his work, his willingness to learn, and his devotion to making the parks the best they can be for the community. And Andrew was unable to come this evening, and both Employees of the Month asked me to extend their appreciation for the awards.
Thank you. Andrew, thanks for helping to keep our parks in good shape. That brings us to item C, recognition of National Park Ranger Day.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide the report, and if I could have the couple rangers come up to the podium with Teresa, she's going to provide a brief acknowledgement of National Ranger Day.
And I believe we have a ranger on from MRCA.
Oh, we do.
I believe
Mr.
so.
Gomez is on. Excellent.
Welcome, Chief Gomez.
Thank you very much.
Fernando's the Chief Ranger for the MRCA.
Right, July 31st is World Ranger Day. It's celebrated around the world each year on the anniversary of the founding of the International Ranger Federation, an organization that supports the work of rangers as the key protectors of parks and conservation. Rancho currently has 1 full-time and 10 part-time rangers. The Rangers are peace officers with the authority to issue citations if needed. They're armed and participate in mandatory firearm qualifications. They patrol all parks, trails, and open space within the district. They support staff with issues in the parks. They work on homeless population and connecting them with services. They lock gates and restrooms at night, among other tasks. So at this time, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the district's park ranger team for all their efforts to keep the communities we serve safe. Staff will be celebrating with the Rangers in person during their firearm training on July 30th at the Angeles Crest Shooting Range. We'd like to invite the board to attend if they're interested, and thank you to Chair Dennert for bringing this item forward for us to take the opportunity to acknowledge our Rangers.
Among the many ways our Rangers impress me is their compassion for our homeless population and them working together in a professional way. I'll give you a specific example. Our park rangers know our homeless population by name and their dogs' names, talk to them, and connect them to the services that they need. And maybe that will be the time that they connect them to finding a solution, or maybe it will just be addressing one of their problems. but seeing you interact with them over and over, our park rangers, one by one, seeing each one of them and how they act towards our homeless populations inspired me and made me feel really good about that. So your whole team deserves this recognition.
May I just introduce, this is Ranger Herndon and Ranger Horn. Ranger Horn just recently joined our team, so welcome officially.
I recently went on a ride-along, which is available to all board members if you would like to do that. And I learned something new every time. And you think you know the arroyo and you know the open spaces, and then you discover another little hidden spot. And we made some progress on the last one, so it was fun. Any other board members or staff members want to speak?
Yes, I would. I just want to say how valuable I think you all are to our total operation of this district, because it keeps the parks safe, it makes the public feel safe, and believe me, I think you're such a valuable asset to this district. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. If I could, I just want to commend the board as well for having the program. There's a lot of communities that don't have a ranger program. Many that do, but a lot that don't. And the board's commitment to the program and the resource, I think, is extremely valuable to the community and extremely valuable to the parks. So thank you guys for continuing to fund it, and also to the rangers, thank you guys truly for all your work out there. You guys are awesome.
Any other members of the board or public? Come on up.
Wait a minute.
Or you can do it from there.
No. I was just wondering why they have to go all the way over to Angeles when the Simi Valley Police Department has a facility. Shouldn't they be able to use that? Or is it under the contract?
It's only used by the police department at this time, but that's a good question. Fair point.
Okay, that's it. Great job.
Because we have you at the microphone anyways, I don't mean to put you too hard of a question on the spot, but your favorite part of your job, each of you? And I know it's only been a few weeks, but favorite part so far?
So, Ranger Horn, I did start about 3 weeks ago. I like the community, the people, they're supportive. Like Chair member said, we do know that a lot of the homeless. I did bump into a homeless member and their dog last night at one of our parks. And knowing their background and what they're going through does help have a relationship between them and us, and they respect that, and we're able to get them out of the park and get them the proper help and stuff they need.
Thank you.
Lord, I just want to thank you for this honoring us today, honoring park rangers all over the world. That's what July 31st is all about. And my favorite part of the job is basically I fell in love with the city of Simi. Very respectful. They love law enforcement, majority of them. And so it feels, I feel proud to serve the community of Simi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item D.
Thank you.
Presentation of Certificate of Appreciation to Simi Valley Days Organization for hosting the annual 4th of July fireworks celebration.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief intro. Us in the city are participants in the fireworks. We provide a financial contribution, and we also provide the location for the park, but we have a third-party organization that puts on the event, and they do most of the work. So we're involved, and this year, Simi Valley Days organization, the Chamber had done it for a couple of years in the past and Rotary before that, but Simi Valley Days and John and Nacho stepped up and said that they would put on the fireworks show and do that for the community, and they've done that. So with that, just want to thank them for a great show and turn it over to the board.
Thank you for that. We're going to call John up to receive the award. Nacho's not here, correct?
Correct.
Come on up to the podium. As you do that, I know that the fireworks show is important to our community, and I appreciate that Ed brought it up many times. What we're going to do about the fireworks show, and often the answer is we don't know yet, but it happened, and we're very happy about that. And it didn't happen because we just wanted it to happen, but volunteers, including your organization, stepped up. So I've got this for you.
You know, if I can add one thing, Chair Denner, we'll get back to this in a minute. But Chair Dennert and I, during the day, were there on the 4th of July, and I was talking to John, and, you know, I pointed out to him how I've been hoping for months this would happen, and I keep pushing the board, but John deserves credit too, because they were hoping it would happen, and they were ready to go in case it did. So I really commend you for that, because I think if that wasn't the case, this never would have happened. So it's not just everything you did, but the fact that you had the foresight to know that it was a possibility too, and that's really appreciated. I know the community really appreciates that.
Thank you. So we're gonna take a picture right here. We're gonna hand this to you. And then Ed, I know you have one too. It's his camera. Come on over there. It's mine. Good side. Let me get him. Thank you. Thank you. And Ed, do you have something too?
Right. Well, it's not what John already has his, but while you're up there, John. So just so everyone else knows, it was a little reckless the way it came together, and I think maybe it's just because I knew Assembly Member Valadares's aide that I was the one who found out. But a day or two before the 4th of July fireworks show, the Assembly member decided to give out awards of recognition on the 4th of July. And it definitely came together recklessly, because we were supposed to be there at 2 o'clock. I think the aide showed up at 2:15. And the Assembly member, to her credit, got there, but it was about an hour after that. But there were certificates of recognition given to the city of Simi Valley, 2 Simi Valley days, and then also we received one, and Chair Dennert asked me to take it home and bring it to the meeting. So I'm going to go hand this over to Chair Dennert now for everyone to see. And this was given again to all 3 entities by Assembly Member Valadares.
We got some questions for you on the podium.
All right, John, I don't know if this is the first time I've seen you without a hat, I'll be honest, because you volunteer so often in the community, I always see you outdoors. But is there any other member of the public or board members or staff members that want to speak?
I do. I just want to point out that, say thank you, but this is the first time in all the years that we've had the fireworks that we've given a resolution of thanks to the organization. And I think it's a good tradition to start. I mean, all the years that Rotary did it and the Chamber, we never recognized them. And it's a big job, a lot of hours, a lot of volunteer time, a lot of really hard physical work. And so I think, thank you, but I think it's a good tradition that we're starting.
I want to say I actually agree with Elaine. I will say this, since we were remiss in doing it in the past, at least this was a good starting point, because there was something about this year that it just stood out and meant even more for the community. But I do agree with Elaine, and I do think it's something that maybe we keep going and recognizing in future years. But I think the community is always going to remember your organization's work in making this happen, and should always remember it because of what's gone on for the past year and a half and how much it meant to the community. So,
thank you, I appreciate that. If I can say a couple quick words. Sure. First of all, the other organizations, as you know, they put it on. Everything has its trials and tribulations. You know, there are multiple members. Our board consists of 5 people. So we put this on with 5 people. And we all work full time. I picked up my permit from the city at 3:30 on Friday afternoon.
We're not doing that.
So it was a lot of stuff, like Ed said. We actually did not know what we were going to be allowed to do until June 15th. And so we used that as we kind of had an A plan and a B plan. And when the A plan came together, we just kind of did it. It worked. So I'm very proud of my organization for putting it all together and getting it all done. What I'd really like to say, though, while I'm up here is I want to thank the Park District and its employees, and Paul Friedeborn especially. You guys did an outstanding job. You know, they were down there with the sand, helping the fireworks guys put together their mortar boxes. The Boy Scout troop that we brought in has worked with the other organizations. I got an email from them yesterday saying that it was the cleanest, easiest job they had ever had. and they really appreciated it. And most of that was your guys, you know, picking up the trash from them, so they didn't have to carry it back to the dumpster, and helping them out and taking care of it, and it just went flawlessly. I was down at the park starting Friday morning. I was there off and on pretty much until Monday morning. Monday, I left there about noon, 11 o'clock. Your crew had that park so clean, you'd have never known that anything had happened the day before. It was absolutely amazing. They just deserve the recognition. They were a big help to us. So thank you very much for the award. We appreciate it, and we'll put it on again next year, hopefully.
I know there's always someone in an organization that does work that nobody recognizes. If that's true for your organization, thanks to them too for helping out. That brings us to item E, presentation by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority regarding open space initiative.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Just a little bit of background. The Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority is an organization that's formed by a JPA, which it has 3 Joint Powers Authority partners: Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Conejo Park District, and ourselves. It's been around a long time, and the MRCA is basically the operating arm of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. So Santa Monica Mountains is a state agency that's a granting agency, and has a state role, but the MRCA was created to be the kind of the day-to-day operational arm of that, and we are one of the principal members of that JPA. The JPA has a board of directors, which there are 4 people on. We have a seat, Conejo has a seat, there's a public member, and a Santa Monica Mountain seat. So with that, they've asked to update us and present to us and let us know what's going on at the MRCA, both now and looking forward. We've got 3 staff members from MRCA, I think here, Rory Skay, who is the chief deputy, Paul Edelman, and Ranger Gomez. So with that, I believe they've got a PowerPoint, and they're going to walk us through MRCA activities.
Hello, Dan. Is our screen shared with you?
Yes.
It is shared? Okay.
We have it.
Great.
Good evening, Chair Dinner and directors, and thank you very much, Mr. Paranek. I'm Rory Skay, and as Dan said, I serve as Chief Deputy Director of the Conservancy and Chief Deputy Executive Officer for MRCA. We really appreciate your giving us the opportunity to provide a little look back overview of nearly 40 years of collaboration with the district and how integral a role the district plays in regional conservation efforts. Back in the 1980s, we were able to assist the district's very key acquisition of Corriganville. And around the same time, the development of the Arroyo Simi Equestrian Center was another early project. Via a conservancy grant to acquire China Flat over on the other side of the hill from Bob Hope, the district became an MRCA partner. And since then, joint efforts have involved the acquisition of Rocky Point, the Long Canyon Wood Ranch open space dedication, your preservation of Alamos Canyon, the John Chich property in the eastern Simi Hills, along with the pending nearby land donation. You also hold overlapping conservation easements over MRCA's Rocky Peak Park, the Upper Las Virgenes Canyon open space, and Corral Canyon in Malibu. So that's over 10,000 acres. I'll turn it over to Paul Edelman, who's the Chief of Natural Resources and Planning for MRCA, and he'll give you a regional overview of our ongoing conservation efforts, highlighting the district's statewide habitat connectivity importance. Paul will be followed by Chief Ranger Fernando Gomez, who will remark on cooperative operations work. Paul, go ahead.
Hello, members. Thank you. I just want to start with the governor's initiative, 30% by 2030, to save that percentage of land in the state. And since then, that's kind of gone global, it's gone local, it's gone national, and it's all to be determined what the initiative is and what in terms of what's protected and not protected. But I think amongst our group here, we know what's protected and not protected. And we're really in a race in time to, as land values go up and there's less land to buy. And what's really what this presentation is about is how the MRCA, the Conservancy, and Rancho Simi can work together to achieve some of these goals of saving 30% the land, or as much as we can. And I think so far, based on what Rory said, that cooperation has just been stellar to date. At this point, pretty much everything's going to get drier. Every acre is going to support less wildlife, and that means that we have to preserve more land and connect more land and do more to compensate for that. And I think the pandemic has shown us that with the drought and the pandemic, how important it is for green space and recreation. So just to begin with, the Conservancy's area of influence includes all these different watersheds going into multiple different counties. And this is what the Conservancy's legislative boundary looks like right now on the state level. And I'll sort of grow from this slide as I go forward. And feel free to ask questions in the meantime if you want to jump in on anything, or I can always go back. And then Conservancy has all these different joint powers authorities, obviously including the MRCA with Rancho Simi, that allow it to extend its influence out into multiple areas beyond just the Santa Monica Mountains. And this is a slide that shows how territorially the Conservancy has influence via these JPAs up into Kern County, down into Orange County, and throughout a lot of Ventura County. So this is what I'll use this slide to show that whole area of influence, is how to go through some of the next ones here. And right now, this is what the MRCA manages for all different agencies, some on its own dime, some on contracts with different cities, but it's spread all over, and this is how the MRCA can contribute management and stewardship-wise to protecting property over a broad swath of land. And then here's your boundary superimposed on that whole area, and you can see you're right in a crossroads of connectivity between all of these different mountain ranges. And this is that same boundary, and you can see how it's just a complete dance or interplay between what Rancho Simi does and what the MRCA and Conservancy do to protect in this particular zone. And this is just the same slide that Rory showed again to emphasize our partnership together to date. And then back to your zone here, on that next slide will play off of this. You can see that our whole area, based on the state's natural diversity database, is just chocked with sensitive species occurrences, and it might as well just all be brown colored in terms of what there is to save. And then the fact that the mountain lion, all of our mountain lion populations in our area are now candidate threatened species, that changes things a little bit too in terms of CEQA and just how to think about land use. We have our whole host of sensitive species, some federal, some state, that are just make our area pretty unique. I'd throw the slide in. I don't know whether, Dan, you want to weigh in or not, or whether or not Rancho Simi is a certified mitigation entity holding. So back when we were trying to get this ability to hold mitigation lands, I know Rancho Simi was applying. And so it's just so critical that we have entities like your agency and our agency and other agencies to hold these properties, because if we're going to save all this land and more land, we need entities that are willing to take it and manage it. So Rancho Simi, your territory is right in the epicenter of all the connectivity between the Santa Susanas and the Santa Monica Mountains. The yellow lines are the South Coast Wildlands missing linkages, boundaries mapped out, and here, Simi Valley is both ends is where the action is. Again, the same slide, the brown is those yellow boundaries superimposed again with a different color, showing the parklands and the connectivity from across the 118 down to the 101. And the switching over to Alamos Canyon, again, the brown is the South Coast Wildlands missing linkages boundaries. All these different potential connections there by Alamos Canyon.
Paul, can you explain what you mean by missing linkages? Paul is asking, can you explain what you mean by missing linkages?
Oh, it was a study done in 2000 by the South Coast Wildlands to come up with the 15 most endangered important habitat linkages between mountain ranges in Southern California. And one of them was, they lumped a bunch together, and that was called the Sierra Madre to Santa Monica connection, and that's from north of the 118 into the Santa Monica Mountains.
So this is a mixture of public and private property currently, correct?
Correct. And this shows everything in brown here. Well, you'll see the next slide will make it really clear, but the parkland is green here. Some of the other brown is owned by the sanitation district. And then this makes it a little bit more clear. So what it really boils down to, that habitat linkage is now, we've just a little bit of it left. That Jeremy Irons project that got approved by the city left just a little swath to connect underneath, where we have a great crossing underneath the 118 and Alamos Canyon to get into there. And you can see that it's pretty much the Rancho See Me show, this whole connection, and we appreciate that. And I know there was even a little bit of an easement on all of these properties that got approved in that area. And then that then leads to the 118s on the north of the end of the screen, to getting into the Sierra Nevada Valley. Again, it's all about Rancho See Me as far as the connectivity so far. And this slide only gets you halfway southbound through the Sierra Nevada Valley to get into some of the National Park Service properties and around Bard Reservoir. So a lot of action, a lot of work to do, and you guys are in the middle of it, and we hope we can keep working together on it. And then switching over to the Santa Susana Pass, the habitat linkages is in the brown dots, and we're doing a good job collectively, our agencies, to make this connection into the Sage Ranch Park. But there's still a lot of work to do in between, including Mr. Fishback's land. And this is the purple property is an example of a 119-acre donation that we're processing that will help make that. And so the issue is, how do we get the money to do the rest of this? And the key really is the Wildlife Conservation Board through CDFW, Fish and Wildlife approved conceptual area protection plans. And this is everything in orange is where there already is a plan, which means that we can apply for that money. And lo and behold, there already is an approved cap, as it's called, in between the Rocky Peak and Sage Ranch. So there's a great source of state funding to close that gap if we can get the deals and the appraisals all lined up. Again, back to this side, you can see there's a lot of work to do to make a pure connection between Corriganville and Sage Ranch.
Paul, what's the status of that donation?
What about the donation?
What's the status of it? You said you're processing it.
Oh, we've got the title report. We're working on kind of the final details. It was a conditional donation where the donor wanted to have a sign put up for his name, wanted a little fencing put around the house that's on the adjacent property, to do a little brush clearance. Really modest demand. So we're just working out the final agreement on that.
And so would you anticipate that'd be open to the public in 3 months, 6 months?
Oh, I'd say less than 2. Although, whether, Fernando, if you're on the line, depends how fast we got our sign up. But I mean, theoretically, once the MRSA owns it, it's open to the public, whether it's signed or not.
Dan, when we get closer to that, I'd like to do a grand opening of some sort. Just where we get to celebrate and let the public know that the land's available to them.
We can do that. I'll coordinate with the MRCA staff for that.
Yeah, well, let's get the sign up for the donor, and that sounds like a good thing to do. And then with these properties too, by Happy Camp and the Big Sky Ranch and Hidden Creek, all of that is in one of the first caps ever done in Southern California. So if we can get appraisals and willing land sellers and enough money from the Wildlife Conservation Board, we can contribute in huge slots to the 30/30 program there. Butler Ranch, south of the 118, is not in a cap. And then all these lead to the Great Wildlife Bridge being designed over the 101 at Liberty Canyon that the MRSA is very involved in. And so all this work to get into the Simi Hills then will lead to this great facility leading into the Santa Monica Mountains. And the other tools we have to work on guiding the land acquisition in these LA County significant ecological areas are helpful. The Conservancy and MRCA work programs are ambitious, but it gives you a sense of, there are a lot of lands to buy, and these are a guidepost. One thing that Conservancy is doing is it's a state sponsor for this new state program called Regional Conservation Investment Strategies for Advanced Mitigation. So in this corner of the Antelope Valley, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy is the state sponsor, and then it's JPA with the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District, the Desert and Mountains Conservation Authority is actually the public sponsor. And so this RCIS should be done in a month, and we'll see whether or not anybody wants to do advanced credits through it, through CDFW. And then the importance of the Conservancy is adopting habitat linkage planning maps officially as state documents to help guide the CEQA process, to help save land to keep connections in the Hollywood Hills. And we're getting down into this level of granularity to connect wildlife corridors to Griffith Park. And then in the LA River, the Conservancy and the MRSA worked on Millennial Conservancy, the Upper Los Angeles River Tributary Revitalization Plan. 100 different projects in the Upper Los Angeles River, mainly in the urban areas. An example would be this proposed project for the Hanson Dam spreading grounds. And then the MRCA is working on about over a dozen concurrent restoration projects, some of pretty massive scale like what we're doing here in Soledad Canyon, dismantling an old RV park. And we just planted over 1,000 trees in the southeast corner of Ventura County on the Upper Las Virgenes Preserve. And we're working on the Coastal Slope Trail, as you know, day in and day out, and a lot of different coastal access ways. This is just a zoom in of that, showing the spread of the access ways and a little better alignment of the Coastal Slope Trail. And moving north, doing the Rim of the Valley Trail, which circles Simi Valley, and that's the federal legislation is moving along on that. We also have some of our fingers into the Pacific Crest Trail before it crosses State Route 14.
Paul, go back one slide. With the Rim of the Valley Trail, would that need federal legislation to be able to complete, or is there a way to complete it without it?
You can complete it without it, and it just makes it easier with the feds as far as potentially Fed funding. And again, back to this, it's so important that you're there, we're there to receive this land if we're going to save enough land to protect the biodiversity in our area. Because as things get drier, there's going to be less water, less habitat, and just got to coordinate all of us together on sharing information, working together, working on how to deal with maintenance, because maintenance is expensive. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Paul, go back one slide. You got like a pack of mountain lions. Where was that picture taken?
That was taken on Portal Ridge, which is that mountain range in between like State Route 14 and Antelope Valley. There's a conservancy there called Transition Habitat Conservancy that has bought a lot of land, and they have the huge lions, huge deer, huge badgers, and they're just loaded with animals. A lot of it burned though in that lake fire.
I'll correct myself, it's probably a pride of mountain lions, but I was surprised at the number.
The one does look a little skinny that's drinking there. And so Fernando, just I'd set you up. I have your 4 slides in order. I can do them any way you want it, but just to let you know that this is what Fernando Gomez, our MRC Chief Ranger, what his daily workload is to look over all this 68,000 or almost 70,000 acres of property spread over 3 counties. So Fernando, you're up, and this is your first slide. Do you want me to go to another one, or?
You can start right there. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Fernando Gomez, Chief Ranger. And so one of the key things, I mean, you've obviously noticed that having your ranger program, the importance of having one, and obviously, you know, we in the MRCA, we feel the same thing. And again, given the fact that rangers are very few, far in between, just imagine all the acreage that you just heard and covering. Many times it's relying on additional resources, different park agencies to assist each other. And so that's one of the things that between Chief Rosales from your park, Chief, and then myself, that we've got together and kind of started meshing our trainings and our efforts in joining either properties. So in this case right here, we, between Chief Rosales and myself, we were able to get our departments together and do legal updates, which means is that every year we hear about case law, things that would affect specifically park rangers or when we're actually doing our outreaches, both with just our general public and with our homeless, unhoused folks who actually stay in our parks as well or visit our parks. So again, we saw the value of this, and as you can see in this slide right here, it's just having all of us put it together. Paul, if you want to go to the next one. And again, between your 11 rangers, some of our rangers that were in here, you can see that your forces start multiplying very, very quickly as we patrol each other's area. Specifically, Rocky Peak has been one of the ones that we've joined forces, and your park rangers have actually come over onto us. Probably go to the next one. So this right here in particular one, and this is the backside of Rocky Peak, or if you start hiking up from Hummingbird. The importance of this thing is that a lot of damage has been done, obviously the graffiti, but there were also pictographs in there, and a member of the community brought this to our attention, and we hiked up to this location in triple digit weather, which it just happened to be that day, but we finally made it up there, and as we're going through this, it's trying to make sure that efforts are not just gone unnoticed, but both working with the community, your maintenance staff, your park rangers are patrolling this when, if we can't make it out there. And that also includes even checking our fire roads, Rocky Peak Fire Road as well, and in making contact with folks with dogs off leash or speeding bikes, going those downhill bikes who cause a lot of damage. This is one of the perfect examples of just joining together as we're, our efforts. I think it's the last one more, Paul. Again, this is just our vehicles when we're actually out there. So this is one of the things that, we really do rely on your park rangers, and when we join together, we can accomplish a lot more than just one of us or two of us, but it's, we rely on our partners. And again, we call upon each other, we train together. I know your rangers go out to the Angela shooting range. We train in the same location as well. So, we've trained together, from legal updates, even firearm classes. We have actually worked together and come up with programs with Chief Rosales. So we do rely on the rangers, and we're actually happy to see that the support that the rangers, park staff get all throughout your area, and again, the Santa Monica Mountain. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation, but I think there's a value to having all of our rangers and our folks just protecting the resources that are out there, because your hard work in saving and preserving, it needs to be protected. It needs to be somehow, and that's our part. That's our job to do this, and on your guys' behalf as we go out there and meet the public. So thank you all very much.
Chair Dennard, that concludes our lengthy report. Thank you for your patience, and if you have questions, we're happy to answer.
I have a list. The first one I have is a question about Alamos Canyon. To access it, currently, my understanding is you have to park at Oak Park County Park, but then you have to pay for parking, but you don't have to pay to use the park. Is there any way we could work through MRCA and the county to do something about that?
Which park is this?
Alamos Canyon. So the parking location is Oak Park County Park, and it's minimal. It's $2, I think, on a weekday. That means you have to carry cash, and it's 2021. Like, you can't Venmo at the check-in.
Yeah, Chair Dennard, that would be a bit of a knotty problem, since the county, as you said, is the owner of Oak Park. I think what we could be doing is planning with you on a potential other access into Alamos. I know City of Moore Park has desires to have a trail that would link their open space into Alamos, so that might be a future project.
Okay, that's good. And then my next question is about Rocky Peak, and there's break-ins, and I know there's so many different agencies that might be involved, but what could we do, or MRCA, about the break-ins of people that park to hike at Rocky Peak? Like their cars are getting broken into.
You're right. I mean, we have seen, and this is one of those things that's crimes of opportunity, because it's just being folks who come and visit the parks, and it's not just Rocky Peak. We've seen this, in our other parks. We have also shared with National Park Service, state parks, and they're doing the same thing from the coast through Malibu Creek State Park. And it's just one of those things. It's actually educating folks of not leaving their belongings visible, and or better yet, it's not even. When they arrive to the hiking trail, and then they open their trunk, because it's just either just a click away and their trunk opens, and folks are actually already, the burglars are actually in the parking lots. They're watching. We have actually built some cases in our other contracted areas in Whittier, utilizing camera systems. We have actually made cases with Whittier PD, and arrests have been made based on utilizing our camera system. So that may be one of the tools that we could try to implement, but I think it's the most important thing is to educate folks. Either we have signs that say, don't leave valuables in the vehicles, but maybe just a really strong message, either through social media or through whatever the means may be to get this message out. It should be one of the starting points, but it is a challenge through all of our trailheads. And it's again, we start to LAPD, and they get them in the malls, and then because folks get so comfortable, or they come back and they put all their new purchases in the trunk, and people are watching. They break the window, pop the trunk, and they've just lost their stuff. So it is an ongoing issue, and it's just sad that this is going on. But again, maybe it's something that maybe I can talk to Chief Rosales to see how we can focus a little bit more attention on that. So we'll put it on our list.
And I'm open to, if you determine that cameras would be of use to deter thefts there. Are there questions from
Yes.
other board members or staff?
I had a comment.
I see a question from Elaine.
I just want to comment on Alamos Canyon and the parking lot. The district paid for and expanded that parking lot. And when we put in the trail and got the encroachment permit to go under the freeway. So technically, we have a major investment in that parking lot. So maybe there is a way to where, I don't know what our agreement was with the county when we expanded the parking lot. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I'll work with the staff and look into that arrangement on our side and see if we can talk to the county about that.
It could be easy, like day use parking for Alamos Canyon, you must park over here.
Yeah.
And then that's the
I
free
mean,
parking.
since we made the investment in the parking, but I don't know what our agreement was with the county when we did that.
I'll follow up on that.
My next question is about e-bikes. We allow e-bikes pedal assist within our parks. And how would that work with Shumash and Rocky Peak?
Right. With the MRCA, our policy currently, other than for ADA purposes, they are not permitted. However, we have discussed, or at least I brought this up, and probably about for more discussion, is how we can manage this program, this e-bikes, because unfortunately e-bikes are here to stay, and we are seeing more and more folks utilizing these e-bikes. So I think this matter, we'll try to look into a little bit more and see how we can manage this issue, because we're not going to be able to stop them, but maybe we can reconsider, but there's something that we would have to talk to executive staff and figure out a little bit more.
Who's the decision maker on that?
Right now, currently it's within our ordinance, and so there's something that passed through our board, through all the laws through there. But there's something that our consideration. We can either talk to our legal team and our executive staff. So I will bring this up at our next executive staff meeting.
To be clear, I'm not asking for
our executive director.
To be clear, I'm not asking for fully motorized, but pedal assist bikes that it'd be much easier if our ordinance is matched, when the public doesn't always know what part of Chumash Park, for example, MRCA takes over.
I just want to add, it wouldn't just be easier, but it's just practical, and it's just common sense given the way things are now and how popular they are. There seems no reason why they shouldn't do that.
Right, yes, we will definitely look into this. Like I said, I will bring this up in our next executive meeting.
Thank you. And then Paul, this might be for you to answer. I just want to give you an idea as far as open space future purchases. If you could put it as a possibility to get access to or look into access to Whiteface. Paul, are you familiar with the mountain I'm talking about? It's iconic in Singing Valley, and in the past, the property owners have not really enforced no trespassing, but recently there's a fence added, and it's a pretty iconic thing to do in Singing Valley is to hike that mountain. So whether it's just a easement, permission to hike, or a future purchase one day, that's something to consider. And I saw it on some of your maps and not others.
The former Big Sky Ranch, or at least one of the owners, is very interested in selling. The funding isn't there yet, but we do communicate with them quite often. So.
And whether it's the larger ranch or just the front of it to the mountaintop, I'd be interested in discussing either one.
Okay.
And then,
Isn't that owned by the people that own the golf course down below?
Big Sky.
The principal owner, I believe, is Isaac Marati.
Oh, the top of the mountain? Oh, okay. So it's within that red boundary? The red boundary is the Isaac Marati property.
Brian? I don't know what specific.
my understanding is it's part of the movie ranch right now. So it might depend on which access trail you use to get to it. There's a couple different ways. And then lastly, I ask you to keep us in the loop if there's any grants that we can apply for or state funding. I know the legislation is stalled on fire prevention, but we're very interested in that. We don't want to miss out if there's anything that we should be doing to request that.
You bet.
Any other staff members with questions? Any members of the public want to comment on this agenda item? Come on up, or yes, so you can use the mic, come on up. Paul, when he starts speaking, if you could give me a thumbs up that you can hear him.
I'm taking my hat off. I don't want to be political. I can't. Anyway, yeah, with the government mandating more and more homes, it's just that much more critical, in my opinion, that we need the open space. When the problems arise, as they always have, is when you cram people together and they don't have an outlet. This is why this park district is so great. It gives us a lot of open space. But as they continue with their agenda, the state mandating housing, then that open space becomes even more, like I say, more critical. People have to have somewhere to just go and relax. That's all.
Thank you. The last two things I did take a lot of notes was, Dan, there was a reference to mitigation holding. Can we follow up and find out more about that?
I believe I did talk to Wayne. We did apply for that. I believe we are approved now, but I will have to double check. It's been a while since I asked, and I'll get that information to you guys, Paul and Roy. I believe we're approved as a, yeah.
I think you submitted at the same time we did. I think you did get approved, and I think we both have to renew in 2023.
Yeah, I think we did get approved, so I think we're good there, yeah.
I think so.
And Officer Gomez, thanks for going on the hike with us. We saw some Shumash artifacts that were so close to being destroyed or damaged by graffiti. And Paul Friedeborn and Nikki has organized a large group of volunteers, so we're going up there the next time this Saturday to clean up some more graffiti.
Yes, thank you very much for doing that. That's awesome.
That's it. Not seeing anybody else with a question. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Thank you.
That's going to bring us to new business. Item A, approval of resolution 2011, modifying district policy manual, chapter 2, personnel.
We're not there yet. I'm not sure, wish we were.
We're on 7F now, Chair.
I apologize. I took so many notes on that last item, kind of blocked it out. We're on item 7F, public hearing on the Rancho Recreation Park District annual budget and planning and maintenance projects.
Thank you, Chair. I'll provide the report. We've got a brief PowerPoint here, and we'll go through relatively quickly. So the board approved the preliminary budget in June. After that, we do 2 noticed public hearings for the public again to comment on the budget. One in Simi Valley and one in Oak Park, with final adoption of the budget in late September, early October. Next slide, please. This is your preliminary adopted budget, 49 million in revenues and 49 million in expenditures. All funds are balanced. Next slide, please.
We've got the hook.
This is a little detail. I put this in here for mostly for Oak Park, but this is the Simi Valley portion of the general fund. 16.6 million in revenue and 16.6 million in expenditures, with a $6.4 million fund balance. Simi Valley wages and benefits, 10.9 million. There's the cost of the benefits and the line items. Supplies and services, this is the line item detail, but it's 6.2 million in supplies, general fund supplies and services in the Simi Valley portion of the district. The assessment budget proposed for or adopted preliminary for 21-22. Far right hand column there, 2.2 million in expenditures, which includes a carryover of 338,000, 2.2 million in proposed expenditures for this current fiscal year. These are the spacing's messed up there. These are the budgeted capital projects in the Simi Valley area of the district. The board has been through these, and these are those that are in the adopted preliminary budget for Simi. That concludes staff's presentation. Recommendation is to open the public hearing, take public comment, and then provide any direction to staff if desired.
Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Dan, if you could exit the presentation, it's easier to see everybody on Zoom.
Okay, I'll ask my...
I'm not seeing anyone on here, but...
Thank you, Josh. Any member of the public that's here tonight? So Dan, we'll
close the public hearing.
We'll close the public hearing.
And refer back to the board for any comments or...
There was an item that we discussed earlier that I think more people should be aware of. What's the budget difference between a drought year and a normal, if there is such a thing, normal year for water bills?
Yeah, I would say the swing is about $600,000. So in a wet year, we would spend $600,000 less than we do in a dry year. And then a middle year would be somewhere in between there. But the difference is about a $600,000 swing in the district's budget, depending on how much rain we get.
It's just that's a huge number.
Yep.
It is. I have a question about that in general. When does a year become a wet year? How much rainfall defines a wet year?
I cannot answer that right now, but I will be glad to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for Josh's sake, just so that it's clear, the 600,000 is the swing at the extremes.
Correct.
Right. It's not the right.
Correct. So yeah, we spend, let me think, 700. We spend about 2.8 million in water, thereabouts, a year, in an average year. On a wet year, we would save about $300,000 on that 2.8. In a dry year, we'd have to spend 300,000 more. So on the director is correct. In an extreme year, we'd save $300,000. In a dry year, we'd spend $300,000 more.
And how did you budget for next year?
Next year, we budgeted for a average year. So we usually budget for an average, and then Wayne and the staff come to me and let me know what water is needed. We talk about it, and we authorize, if there's more needed, we authorize more water. Usually we have some savings and we can absorb that within the budget. If it gets to a level where it's a problem within existing resources, we come back to the board. And then in a wet year, we have savings at the end of the budget year. The bottom line, we'd have extra savings that we can put into projects and other things.
So at this point, you're asking for a direction if any board members have any other questions or feedback. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Yes. So we've conducted the required public hearing by notice, and if there's, well, the next step will be to have the same public hearing in Oak Park and present the Oak Park budget and have a public hearing there.
And not seeing any members of the public that wanted to speak, is that correct? That brings us to item G, status of the district's response to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic.
Thank you, Chair. We had one concern, perhaps a complaint. Somebody felt that indoors we should still be wearing masks, vaccinated or not, so they expressed that opinion. We currently, if you're vaccinated, we don't require a mask indoors, which is compliant with CDC direction, so they expressed that they thought indoors we should still be requiring masks, which we don't. We had 2 COVID positives amongst the staff. I'm not going to be too descriptive of that. It's in the maintenance area at golf, but and they were unvaccinated individuals that contracted it outside of the district. So we did have that occur in the last few weeks, but that's all under control. And nothing else to report. We're all open. People are registering for classes. I'm going to update you on the ASC activity as part of the district manager's report, but I have nothing further to report about COVID.
Dan, the complaint, was it referring to like day-to-day operations or activities?
There was, as I understand it, there was a person in a gymnastics class. We're doing gymnastics here in this building indoors that felt the people in the gymnastics class should be wearing masks, if I recall it correctly.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. When does the governor's emergency proclamation end?
We don't have a date for that. For what? For
I mean, he extended it.
for the Brown Act, or?
You know, just in general, till September 1 or something? Or has he
Are
given
we
a date?
You're talking about the Brown Act?
Well, the Brown
Executive
Act
order?
plus the governor's state of emergency for COVID.
I don't know the answer to that. I can find out.
I don't know.
I don't know if we're still under a state. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we're all open, so I'm not sure. I'll look into that.
I was just curious and if that made a difference in how we operated or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it sounded like with the Brown Act, I'll just comment on that at CARPD it was CSDA led, that as long as the board is all together, which we talked about, the public can either be here or they can be on Zoom. That without any legislation. In other words, the way we want to operate, we could operate, and it doesn't require any, that was the recommendation or the conclusion, that we would be able to do what we wanted to do.
I just want to follow up. Weren't we going to, as far as what happens in the future, weren't we going to draft a letter that Chair Dennert and I were going to review?
Yeah, but there's nothing out there to draft a letter to, and the legislation out there, like Elaine says, already allows public input. So there's no legislative change needed.
We'll be able to.
Under the new legislation?
No. So existing Brown Act legislation pre-COVID allows the public to attend via Zoom. So so if the governor lifts the executive order, the public can still attend via Zoom.
But can the board members still?
No.
Right.
The board members all have to be present.
Right.
Board members under the existing Brown Act all have to be present. Right. So if you want the board members to have the flexibility, then you would need legislation.
Right. I mean, I think everyone should have the flexibility. I think it's just common sense.
There's a process in the Brown Act where, say, I was in LA somewhere, wherever I was, that agenda would have to be posted there at a hotel, and public would have to know that I was there, so they could participate.
Right, under the current, right.
Yeah, we need to keep this informational, if you want.
Right, I just thought we were going to draft a
Yeah.
letter to that effect.
Yeah. So we took that direction under the assumption that there was legislation needed. Because the legislation's not needed, there's no reason to draft a letter to promote it, unless the board wants to consider a different way for board members themselves to be able to attend meetings. We can do that.
I thought that was going to be part of it.
Okay. I didn't have that
I
understanding.
thought it was just dealing with the public.
Okay, I got it. We all work with the chair and you wanted it.
Yeah.
Ed, would it be good if I included both? My priority is the public can continue to participate.
My priority is both, but I just think.
So I think I've gotten direction to write the letter. If we want to include that, we can.
Okay.
From
I
a
think what would
priority.
have to happen is next legislative session, we'd have to get a sponsor for a bill, maybe CSDA, CARPD. Amend the Brown Act.
Dan, do you have the direction you think you need?
Yes.
That brings us to continued business. There is none. I apologize. Was there any member of the public that wants to speak on the status of the district's response to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic? Josh is helping me search. We're not seeing anybody. That brings us to continued business. There is none. That brings us to new business. Item A, approval resolution 2011.
I would actually request a quick recess.
Sure. It's 7:58. We'll be back at 7:59. We'll be back at 8:04. We are back. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila,
Here.
Director Freeman,
Here.
Director Gray,
Here.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Here.
and Chair Dennert.
Here. That brings us to new business. Under 9A, approval of resolution 2011 modifying district policy manual, chapter 2 personnel, sections 1304, 1310 regarding employee benefits.
Thank you, Chair. Director of Administration Teresa Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you. Employee negotiations recently concluded and resulted in a policy manual change, which includes an increase in the flex benefit in the amount of $75 per month. In addition, a boot allowance for part-time rangers was added to the 21-22 budget and also requires a change to the policy manual. So at this time, staff is recommending approval of these changes and request authorization for the district manager to update the district's policy manual.
A motion to approve.
I do have to say, if there's any public comment,
Still made the motion.
any member of the public want to comment on this agenda item? Not seeing anybody? Are there any motions to approve it?
Motion to approve.
I will second.
All those in favor, Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Aye.
Chair Dennert,
Aye.
and motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to 9B, amendment to ordinance number 3, allowing one-wheeler devices in parks.
Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you. On March 4th, 2021, staff presented a report to the board regarding the use of one-wheelers in the parks. These devices have become popular in recent years, and the district's current rules do not address the use of them in the parks. The board directed staff to update the district's ordinance to allow the use of one-wheeler devices in parks and on trails. And we're here tonight to conduct the first reading, and staff is at this time recommending legal counsel read the ordinance title. If you could, Mr. Pierce.
Brian, can you read the ordinance title?
I'm looking for the page number in the agenda where that's found. Does somebody have that?
There's no page numbers.
Ours don't have page numbers.
Okay.
Interesting, we usually do.
number
I
67.
found it. This is ordinance number 3, an ordinance of the Rancho Senior Recreation and Recreation and Park District Board of Directors establishing rules and regulations governing the use of district parks and facilities and participation in district programs.
That brings us to any questions by board members, then public comment.
I have a question, but it doesn't, on the, after we vote, I want to ask a question about the rest of the document. Okay.
About the what?
Well, at CIRPD, we took a class, breakout session on camping and homelessness in the parks. And I think we're clear, I mean, when I read this, but I was thinking maybe we ought to take a look and make sure that we're as secure as we can be to not have any camping in the park or overnight. It sounds clear to me, but the laws have changed. And I'm sure we're compliant, but it just seems maybe we ought to take a look and make sure our policy is consistent with the new homeless laws.
So Elaine, you could meet with Dan and check that, and if it needs to be on the agenda item.
Staff will review the
I mean,
ordinance.
just take a look at it. If there's a problem, let us know. If not, it's okay.
Any members of the public want to comment on this agenda item? I see a member of the public. Come on up.
I can do it from here. I think you can hear me.
We got to get you on the microphone for the people on Zoom.
People on TV.
But we can bring the mic to you next time.
I'm getting old. That's the question. I've seen the electric bicycles and the skateboards, electric skateboards even. I have never seen a one-wheel vehicle. I've seen Segways, I have never seen a one-wheel.
I don't have either.
I've got a photo of it here, Doug. I can show you.
Oh, okay, what page?
Actually, I'll give it to you. Yeah.
In the meantime, your wardrobe keeps changing each time you come up.
Okay, all right, that was it.
It's a different person every time. I think that's really cool.
I just had never seen one. Oh, wow. That's what happened to the old.
Hey, you want to? There it is.
Thank you. I don't think it's balanced, but.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Teresa?
We just have one more step here, item number 2 under recommendation to motion to waive further reading of the ordinance.
That is essentially the,
A motion?
that is the motion, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if Elaine made the motion, I'll second.
Before we do a roll call vote on that for discussion, I brought this to our attention not because, as you mentioned, there's that many of them out there. There's a few. It might grow, it might not. But they're usually used on off-roading, like on trails. They don't go very fast. And I was impressed. I met somebody at Los Yajos the other day that was riding from Los Yajos up through Rocky Peak,
Really?
through the pass, and then back to his house. That was a 30-mile range. And even though this ordinance may or may not be needed because our rangers currently were allowing it anyways, the point is I want to make a statement that we're open for fun, and maybe we could be the center of one-wheeling. You know, if it continues to grow, that maybe that's something that more and more people will do, because there's a lot of places out there that are hard to get to. But I've ridden one twice, and it is definitely I didn't go very far, but you're going to get exercise on one. It's not a kick back and relax. You got to balance on those things, and they're pretty fun. Are we ready to do any other discussion on it? Are we ready?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Dunner?
Yes.
And the motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to item C, authorization to solicit bids for Jay's Club Shaq Renovation at Senior Hills Golf Course.
Thank you, Chair. Brian Reed, the golf course manager, will present the staff report.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. The district entered into a concession agreement with Jason Mueller on December 11th, 2012 to provide golf club repair and club fitting services at Simi Hills. At that time, staff converted the old ball shed, which had been vacant, into a workshop, and Jay's Club Shack has been providing repair services ever since. Jay's Club Shack pays the district a flat fee concession rent each month, and additionally all the custom fitting orders are routed through the golf shop, so the district gets a little piece of that business as well. In March last year, golf course staff was looking at the shed, and it needed some repairs, a new front door and a new roof. In the course of those conversations, staff decided that the Club Shack being a central amenity to the course and was going to be that way for quite a while, it was desirable to consider expanding the scope of that repair effort, and possibly an expansion of the shed itself. Staff determined that a new ball shed behind that club shed would be appropriate in addition to renovations to the existing shed. The initial plan was to construct the ball shed first, relocate the equipment and Jay's Club Shack, his workshop, to the new ball shed, and then complete renovations to the Club Shack. During the course of those construction and planning, several complications came to light, which caused delays and added cost to the project. It became clear that the cost of the project was going to exceed authorization, so the decision was made to pause the project, complete planning in its entirety, and then take it out to public bid. So golf course staff has worked with district landscapers, Tom Evans specifically, created plans and bid specs for the desired renovations to the shack. The existing single range shed would be replaced by 2 new small sheds with a breezeway in between them. One shed would be for Jay's Club Shack, and the other would be for the range ball dispenser and range light control panels. Previously, Jay's workshop was co-located with the range light and the timers, which required our staff to enter his workspace to make any changes or turn on and off the lights, which was a little bit of a security issue for Jay's equipment. With the 2 workspaces separated, the Club Shack would have better control over his inventory and tools. And the breezeway between the 2 sheds would provide easier access to the ball washing equipment and minimize any tripping hazards for staff. Replacing the concrete pad and retaining wall will improve the overall look and feel of the whole facility, and installing a railing and removing the existing tree, which is upheaving the concrete, will improve the durability and safety of the site as a whole. At the conclusion of this project, the new ball shed to the rear will house storage and the ball washing machine. One shed will house the range ball dispenser and electrical panels, and the other will house the Club Shack. Golf course staff has done a preliminary estimate on the project. We've spent about $50,000 so far on the ball shed and retaining wall and concrete work back behind. The estimate the golf course staff put together was $95,000, broken down as follows. You can see on the staff report. The upgrades to the ball shed and the rain shed will result in much improved and safer workspace for the staff. The previous rain shed was in disrepair and only minimally functional. The building was also very poorly lit and too small for the equipment housed within it, and there were tripping hazards due to the concrete being heaped up. This enhancement to the facilities will be a significant improvement. The new upgraded facility will dramatically improve the appearance of a key aspect of our business and will set the stage for many years of service to the community. Adequate funds are earmarked in the district fiscal 21-22 budget for this project, and staff recommendation is that the board authorize staff to go out to bid, to solicit bids for this project. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Chair, if I could, just real quick, the budget estimate at $95,000, it could be a little more, it could be a little less. Normally what we do is, if it's more, when we come back and award the contract, we can amend the budget accordingly, or we'll recommend to do that as part of the bid contract award when we know the actual cost.
Brian, I asked the Rural High School girls golf coach, Rich Alitas, about it, knowing that he knows about golf. And he said that Jason was generous and an asset to the course and spoke really highly of him.
Yeah, Jason's great. He's been a big draw, and he's a very popular
Any members of the public with comments? Not seeing any. Any questions from board members? Any motions?
I will move that we approve this solicitation of
second it.
bids. Yeah.
I saw Kate and then Josh. Josh, that is what you were doing, correct? You unmuted yourself?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, Josh was definitely making a motion.
I was getting ready to vote.
Oh. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Aye.
Chair Leonard.
Yes.
The motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 9D, update and direction regarding COVID relief funds verbal report.
Thank you, Chair and Board. To date, we have not secured any federal, state, or local funding to reimburse us or offset the cost impacts of COVID. A little bit of personal opinion in this report. Almost all other sectors have received some form of COVID relief. Individuals, businesses, state government, local government, federal agencies across the board. Through the process that we're in, special districts were not a part of any of that. We were successful at the state level. I was part of a coalition with CSDA to get $100 million included in the state budget trailer bill. But there's 3,500 special districts, and if you do the math, $100 million, that was about 40,000 each. So it doesn't go very far. So that was good. And then the county kind of looks to the cities. The cities, our city received $15 million. So when you talk to the county or the state, if you're a city that has a parks department, your parks department got COVID relief because the city got $15 million. If you're a parks district and you're not a part of the city, you would not have gotten any COVID relief for your district. So when you talk to folks at the state and county level, they kind of say, hey, you should get it from the city. When you talk to folks at the city, although our city hasn't said this generally, they'll say, well, you should get it from the state or the county. So we end up in that situation. So I did copy the letter, the board on a letter, an administrative letter a couple months ago. I'm kind of opening the door to having that discussion with the city. I sent it to the city manager requesting that we be considered to receive a part of the city's $15 million allocation. The city manager told me that they were going to make decisions on how they appropriated those funds in July or August. So I did reach out to him and remind him of the conversation. My request here is to have a couple of board members potentially work with me and potentially the city, I guess, to communicate with them if it's the desire of the board to pursue some form of funding from the city for COVID relief. So I'd like to ask the board if they support us doing that, and then secondly, ask that a couple of board members help me in my communication with the city at a policy level and also an administrative level. So,
before we get into that discussion, is there any member of the public that wants to speak on that? Not seeing any? Dan, I know that you sent the previous letter, but it's I had two questions. One is about the timeline, and the second is the total number that you think that we should request.
The timeline, as he told me, I would think, I don't think it's going in August or in July, so I think he's going to be going to the city council. I don't know the exact time frame, but he earlier told me probably in the August time frame. In terms of the amount, I've looked at Ventura and Oxnard, who have parks departments as a part of their cities. They have a quite range of what they put in parks, but I think it was about 9% of their budgets are for parks or 10%. I also, we lost about $4.5 million in revenue offset by some savings, but our net loss is probably around $3 million, or our net impact of the expenses plus loss. and looking at the percentage, I would think the request would be somewhere in the $2 million range to 2.2 reasonably. Our direct cost expenses were about 1.6 million. So when we subsidized opening the after-school club, when we had extra rangers out doing enforcement, when we did PP, personal protective equipment, so our direct expense is about 1.6. So I would say our request of the city would be somewhere between 1.6 and 2.2 of the 15 million. Obviously, if they're willing, one is, are they willing to recognize our role in the community for providing the service we did, and then how much, like you asked. I would say it's in a range of 1.6 to 2.2 would be a reasonable request. The other thing interesting, I just thought of this, is at the same time public policy was directing people to the outdoors and to use our services. So not only do you have us not a part of any piece of legislation to get relief funds, public policy was saying, go to the outdoor spaces, go use the trails, go in the parks. So at the same time we weren't in, but we were the area that they were directing the public to come use. So just another opinion, so to speak, and frustration. So I've been on many calls explaining this to legislators, to the county, to different people, and we're getting just kind of the finger pointing, I guess. Now, park districts, in the state budget, water districts were able to secure some funding for lost revenue for people that weren't paying their water bills, and ports were covered. But the case for park districts, like I said, it's $100 million, but we're not going to see anywhere near $2.5 million out of that potential source. So, yeah.
I know that some legislators have secured funding, like for Caneo.
Yeah, and I was going to comment on that. So what's happened is the park districts are doing everything they can. We approached the state, we got 100 million. We approached the county as a coalition, they said no. So the park districts, or whoever's left without receiving funding, and we have a good pace for needing, are kind of splintering off and going off on their own and trying to get it from wherever they can. So other park districts have, state legislator Jackie Irwin got money for Conejo. She's not our legislator. She made that a priority of hers and was successful in that. So I think there was 2 park districts in the state that got earmarks from their local legislators to cover some of the COVID relief. So what I see now is whatever districts.
Did you check with our assembly member?
Yeah, we submitted stuff to the assembly member, not specifically for COVID relief. So, and then politically, our assembly member didn't get any money for anything. So there's a dance there. Jackie's in the assembly and Henry Stern is there. So there's the Dems are controlling the state budget. So, but no, I did not specifically ask our assembly member to put in a COVID relief request. So, but she did submit a list of projects for them to submit for us, but not specific to COVID. So.
Our assembly person didn't put any of the earmarks requested.
So what does the board think of appealing to the city?
I think it's.
I think we should.
I would definitely.
I think we're quite justified. I mean, the city advertises this and takes pride in our district. We provide for the same citizens. I think absolutely we should.
Absolutely, yeah. I concur, absolutely, no question.
Ed or Josh?
Yeah, I'm in support of appealing to the city. I'd also ask, Dan, I know the county continues to have their line. Would it also be worth us appealing to them anyways?
Yes, I think it would be reasonable to appeal to them for the Oak Park percentage of our expenses. So I don't think they're going to say yes to all of it, but because Oak Park's unincorporated, it may be worth asking the county for that fair percentage for the Oak Park portion of their district.
And we could appeal that to, because Jackie Irwin covers Oak Park, is my understanding, and so does Linda Parks. Yeah. Ed, any thoughts on this?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, so then the question is, which is usually one or two. Which of the two would you like to be a part of that with me?
I think we should send 2.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I'm good with Elaine and Ed doing that. Josh, any feedback on that, or do you like that idea?
Yeah, I like that idea. If somebody needs a fill-in, I'm also happy to, if somebody can't make it.
Likewise, if somebody can't make it, I'll step up.
So I'm going to continue to work with the city manager. It may be that he puts it in there as a part of his recommended package. If he doesn't or anything, we'll probably maybe attend a council meeting or have conversations with individual council members as a part of our effort here. I'm hopeful that Brian and I can still work on that to get it in, as a recommendation. But if not, we may have to talk to the council about it directly.
Dan, is that all the input you need?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to skip item 9E. Ed asked it to be on a future agenda so that there wasn't too much on tonight's agenda, which brings us to written communications of note. Any board members have any written communications of note?
Other than the survey you received tonight, which we received, we distributed that. The
Pickleball
survey that.
Yeah. Reports by board members. Ed?
Okay, thank you, Chair Denner. So a few things. First, I have to go to the logo because I was at a function with one of the park board shirts, and one of the elected officials approached me and pointed at the thing and said, you have to be careful about that because some people may think it looks like pot plants. So I just want to point that out to further, consider exploring the logo going down the road. I'm not making that up. I'm not going to out the elected official and say who it was, but I'm just passing along the comment for future consideration on the logo. It also may be the last time I wear one of these shirts, but I did it tonight for illustration. I attended Mark's retirement, as I think some of us did. Which was a really nice event. It was that was really cool. Well deserved. Is Mark still on the? In any event, well deserved. I've already thanked him enough anyway. So you're awesome, Mark. I'm giving you props one more time here. And then 4th of July. As I say, Brian and I were there to receive the recognition certificate from the assembly member, but because of the long wait, we also we pretty much toured the whole park and the whole premises. And first of all, it was really cool to see people back out there and everything happening. I do have one comment / question because I don't know and I haven't followed up with our staff on it, so I'll just do it now. It was actually for a summer day. It was a pretty mild summer day. The 4th of July was, and yet there was the booths and the vendors were all on the parking lot on the blacktop, and it was noticeably hotter in that area than it was any other part of the park. I mean, it was like a huge difference. And what it made me think of, if it was and I know in the past vendors and booths were in the grass area. And so I just wonder if it was an extremely hot summer day in the future, how that would work. Was that our idea? Was that Simi Valley Days idea? How did that come about? And I just point that out because it's something to consider for the future. We got a little bit lucky on the mild temperatures that day. Even so, it was really hot in the parking lot where the booths were. So that's just one comment I would make maybe for the future.
The Simi Valley Days Foundation did the layout, so that was their idea. We can certainly make the suggestion for them last year. I think the thinking was, because we put it together quick, that if you were a vendor, you could park your vehicle there, unload, and set it up real quick. So I think they thought it would be easier for them to be in the parking lot.
I mean, if the vendors are fine with it, that's great. I just know that, if it was a really hot day, and I actually like hot weather, but if it was a really hot day, it'd be misery to be walking around out there in the parking lot to the different booths, because it was already hot
Well, also the people that are visiting the booths and this stuff.
My wife wasn't gonna get whatever it was, a snow cone or shave ice, it's the same thing, snow cone, shave ice.
We can
But she
make
wound up getting one anyway because it was so darn hot.
I'll pass the suggestion along
So,
for next year. Yeah.
just one comment, and then Elaine and I were on Zoom for the Oak Park Committee meeting, so that's what I have.
Kate?
Yes, 4th of July, it was really great to see the fireworks again. I missed them last year. We went up to Chumash Park to watch them, and we saw the official ones down at the park, which were awesome. And we also saw all the various illegal ones all over the city. It was nice. It was interesting, but it was a good show overall, and I liked it. I went to CARPD in Monterey, and I attended several of the sessions, and I took photos of the slides that they had up on the screens, so I can email those to everybody if you want. They're pretty legible, and they're like an outline of everything I went to. And of course, Wayne got the Employee of the Year from CIRPD. I just want to reiterate congratulations to him on that. I also attended Mark Johnson's lunch. It was a good event, and I'm glad we finally were able to have it. That was great. Also went on a tour of Callegas Municipal Water District with Dan and Brian. I guess you were on that. And the thing there was something I learned that it had never occurred to me before. I noticed that he said that the director, whose name escapes me.
Raul Villa?
No, the other fellow.
Anthony
general
Goff.
manager.
Tony Goff.
That's the guy, yes. Was saying that, they're not allowed, boating and swimming and fishing is not allowed. And I know I've seen reservoirs where there's boating and fishing allowed. And I said, well, that might be a good revenue stream. You might want to think about allowing that. He says, we can't because we're a terminal reservoir. Non-terminal reservoirs will allow that. And terminal reservoir is it's the last reservoir before the water's purified. So you can't have people swimming in it and boating. But that was interesting. It had not ever occurred to me as an issue. So I'm smarter than I was. That was good. That's all I have.
Elaine?
Okay, I had CARPD and went to several breakout sessions. There was a couple of them that I thought were really interesting on Gen Xers and Millennials and...
I apologize, Elaine. We can't hear you on Zoom.
Sorry, I forgot to turn it on. There was one breakout session that talked about the different beliefs and behaviors of Gen Xers and Millennials and Y generation and how they perceive work and training and life. And the point of the breakout session was dealing with employees and how to motivate employees from these various groups. And I thought it was really, really interesting because my generation, you went to work and you worked. That's what you did. Anyway, then there was the breakout session that I thought was helpful on the legalities of dealing with the homeless on public property. And I think we're clear, like I said, but just to make sure that we're covered. And I always find the board of directors roundtable discussions interesting. And what it strikes me, and George Lang said the same thing, we are so much more organized when you hear these small districts these board members talk about their issues compared to how we deal with our issues. It really is a good education, and it makes you realize how really well organized and successful we are in dealing with issues and the public. I also had a CSDA legislative meeting. There was a lot of discussion of the Brown Act and the changes and how it works once the emergency is over. This resolution came from CARPD, but I gave you a copy of it for Park and Recreation Day, headed the Oak Park Committee. And I just want to point out, we didn't talk about this during the budget, but the money we had allocated for disc golf concrete pads. They don't think it's necessary. They want that money reallocated to something else. I mean, they just said it was not something that was needed. It's not a lot of money. I think it was about $4,600. Yeah, right. Okay, and also, I don't know if Wayne got the message or not. They said there were some of the things on the posting cable that we signed off on tonight that weren't finished, that weren't done.
There's some other post and cable. Douglas and I are working on just a couple others that I don't think they're fire related. They're just damaged from before, or we may is one or two. So the maintenance department and I are working on getting those done, separate apart from the contract.
Okay. And I'm part of Simi Valley Community Council, and I report on what the district's doing at that meeting. And I told about the contract to finish this building off. And Tracy from the general manager of the library said the new trend is to have annex small libraries and facilities like this. So when we get to that point, she'd like to talk to us about maybe having an annex of a library here, a small library that would service people, you know, that are participating in recreation programs.
During the pandemic, they did pop-up libraries in the parks, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so the more they can get out, you know, to where the public is, the better they like it. I think that's it. By the way, the bill for the $100 million is over 300 pages, right?
The trailer bill to the state budget is 300 pages. It has a lot of what you may call earmarks or pork, I think it's known as. So. But there's a lot of, yeah.
Within that, you'd have to read and decide how they plan to implement some of this thing and if there are any policy. Because trailer bills can have policy, which they weren't supposed to, but they do. Right.
Is that it? Josh?
Yeah, so also tack on 4th of July was very popular, so popular that I tried to drive by twice to find any sort of parking so that I could walk around, and there was not anything remotely close, so we chose a slightly more far-off location. But I did hear about it from all sorts of members in the community. It was all positive. People greatly enjoyed it. So I'll thank all the individuals involved with that, including Ed for demanding fireworks be had for the board.
Let the record show that Ed laughed. I want that in the minutes.
And then I'll also bring up, I'd be interested in agendizing it came about because actually looking at Ordinance 3 with the one-wheeler devices, and some time I've spent, not in the parks because it's not clarified, but with my dad utilizing his drone. He's a licensed individual, but upon going through the ordinances, I kind of looked at it and thought that while there is a topic on RCs, I don't know that our ordinances are completely clear or provide full clarity on drones and if it's appropriate. And I know while reading it, there's kind of a broad interpretation of saying you can use certain devices in areas and times and spaces that are set aside for the purpose of RC. So I'd be interested in agendizing and addressing the topic more head on and either including drones in there and then also clarifying the space or potentially creating drones as a unique opportunity and potentially an opportunity to examine teaching opportunities or community informational sources. That I know that FAA, for anybody who's unaware, FAA has recently released new rules that you have to have a license through them, but that licensing is online and it's free, and I'm going through it right now. It's pretty short. That it's one of those, I think this is a topic worth addressing head on, and that all came about because I realized, well, I'd really love to finish my license and then go take the drone and do some landscape videography while I'm on the hikes going through the area. But then reading through it, I as a board member would kind of be like, well, if I wasn't on the board, I wouldn't necessarily know if the district allows it or doesn't allow it, that it's kind of addressing things around drones, but not head-on drones. So I'd be interested, I'd like to agendize that and hear other board members and their topics. But the idea came about because I was like, I'd like to hike, do some videography of our trails, and then share that with the district if any of it's remotely worthwhile, which is a big if. And then I also just wanted to give a quick kind of informational shout out. Tomorrow there's a special in the Acorn for a park I'd never heard of that used to be in Simi, the Douglas White Oaks Park. That's now kind of the Mount Sinai Memorial Park and Mortuary. They did a whole special on that, and yeah, I haven't finished the whole article, but it looked really interesting. Yeah, and I'd love hearing stories if anybody, according to them, it was in disuse before I was born, but others may have stories about it, and I'd be interested in hearing at another time. Yeah, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair. Director Gray will put the drone topic on a future agenda.
Josh, there's a random leftover something or other behind Mount Sinai that I think I now know what it is, so thank you. It's like looks like just a stack of blocks, but it was a part of something at one point. At the Oak Park meeting, was there any progress on the land acknowledgement statement? You know, somebody in Oak Park brought that to our attention.
It did not come up.
Sorry, what was that?
Someone in Oak Park brought up the Shumash land acknowledgement statement.
Oh, right.
And then I had brought up that I would like it to not just be for Oak Park, but also St. Valley, and we posted it on our website or the reporter, whatever the statement is.
That wasn't brought up.
I don't know if we'll need a future agenda item for that. We've already discussed it and said we do.
I was going to talk a little bit about the Oak Park Committee meeting under my report. I can do that now, or we can wait till we get to my report.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the Oak Park, if you recall, we tried to align the Oak Park Committee agendas and your meetings somewhat after their meetings. So I do plan at the August 5th meeting when we're in Oak Park to do a report on activities in Oak Park, which would include items to make the board aware of that were discussed at the Oak Park Committee meeting, but it would also give you guys an opportunity to give me any direction based on the conversation at their meeting. So I did plan to agendize a follow-up on the Oak Park Committee meeting for your August 5th meeting in Oak Park, which makes sense because it's their topic. So that being said, we can address the issue of that there, or that might be a good time to do it at our next meeting as a part of that.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe a discussion item, but put that on there.
Okay, okay, that sounds good.
I also attended Mark's retirement party at Simi Hills. It was a perfect location for it. I'm interested in not addressing it tonight, but in the future, finding another way to acknowledge Mark's long-term service to the district and to the residents of St. Valley and Oak Park. I attended Pride at Simi Duck Pond, and it was an awesome event. I got to ride a one-wheeler there. And Simi Pride for the LGBT community, it was packed. They were having fun. And it was a good celebration, so I was happy to see that in our park. I've been hiking with the Trailblazers and with our Park District group. And these trail guides are really popular. If anybody wants to grab a stack to hand out, I just go for this hike and I see somebody, ask them, do you want a trail guide? And they usually look at me like, what? But when they realize what it is, they're almost always really excited about it. So Alex, Teresa, Mike, good job on that because it's bringing a lot of joy to our residents. Which brings me to our Trailblazers are back and they just started hiking again. They have free hikes. Not much in the world you can do for free anymore. But if any board members or staff members want to join in, they do weekly hikes. On the weekends a little bit longer. Weekdays about an hour and a half. There's a large group. Not everybody knows all the trails, so it's good for newcomers to our community. They can learn new trails. Or just people that don't want to hike alone. But I met a botanist last week. And you just meet so many different people there. Sometime in the future, I would like to acknowledge Mike's long-term service to the district, consider naming a trail after him. And I know that we don't have new trails going in all the time, but it could be an offshoot of a trail. Like, what is a trail actually? Like, if you go to Los Yajos, there's trails all over the place there, but it's just named one. So maybe we could discuss that. Maybe not surprise Mike, maybe surprise him, but ask him if there's a particular place where there's a side trail. Maybe ask one of his friends. But I think it would be a good way to acknowledge all of his service. The hike, he stayed in the back, he made sure that nobody fell behind him, and he was bringing a bucket with trash. And he's been leading those hikes for years. We went, toured with Kate on the Bard Lake or Bard Reservoir. I know 3 times they've told us we can't do anything on that lake.
Yeah.
And they told us it was a terminal reservoir. So I started looking up terminal reservoirs in other communities. And I don't know if they're not technically terminal reservoirs, but other places named terminal reservoirs allow for fishing and for kayaking and for paddleboarding, but ours does not. Now there might be a good reason and it might be impossible to get through, but I'd like to just send a letter requesting that we do a Saturday morning kayaking or paddleboarding class. It'd be supervised by our staff, people could sign in. And if they tell us no and there's impossible to do it, okay, so be it. But if you've ever toured Bard Lake, every place that you go on vacation has water. Maybe not. I mean, maybe you're in Death Valley, one of you. I like Death Valley too. But great places have water. We have water too. But I know service to our community and safety of water is the most important part.
The problem is that water is treated already and it can't get retreated.
That's,
All right.
that's the nature of the terminal.
If you let
the
people
terminal
in there,
situation. Yeah.
then the water would have to be retreated because people will make it dirty. And so there's no way to retreat. The water goes directly into the system.
But there's fish in it.
I'm saying that the water has a certain treatment level that meets the standard for clean drinking water. And, if you put people in there, it's not going to...
No, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And we could certainly send them a letter, but that's going to be their answer probably.
Maybe we should put on agenda for...
I'd recommend if the board wants to discuss it, we agendize it.
Okay, I'll consider that. I know that you might be correct and there's maybe no way to do it. I just want to make sure we thought our hardest for our residents to see if it's possible. Next up, and the last item is, there was an attack on our employees some months back, and I understand there's a long legal process in the justice system, but Brian, you might be able to help us out with this. As a board, I would like to send a letter saying to our district attorney that this is a serious attack, it shocked the community, and we want to know that it has the full attention. But Dan or Brian, can you tell me the best way that we do that? Like, do I put it on the agenda to discuss that? How do I do that?
My recommendation is you put it on the agenda and discuss it and get direction from the board to authorize you as the chair to send a letter on behalf of the board. You could always send letters if you wish when you're addressing them in terms of your own individual capacity or as the chair, just as long as you make sure you're speaking on behalf of yourself and not the board. If you wanted to have the full force of the board in support, then you would need to put it on the agenda and have the board give that direction.
Then I'll put it on the agenda for an upcoming meeting. That's it for me. Report by district manager.
Thank you, Chair. I did note tonight that our building's getting more active now, which is awesome. We do have a plan for parking. So I noticed tonight we had that plan in place to implement before COVID. COVID happened and we didn't quite get it all done. So I will be working on implementing the parking plan at the activity center. So skate park, no issues. Things are good out there. We still have the security there, nothing to report, which is good. Concerts in the park are on their way. We're lining those up. We got everything lined up. We got a stage, and so I just want to report everything's in line for those. We are advertising the normal concerts in the park in June or July and August. We will be having a concert as part of the 60th as requested by the board, but that will be advertised separately. We're not treating that as a part of the concert in the park series. It'll be advertised in addition to as part of our 60th.
Do you have a band yet for that?
I do not know. I'll find out. I don't know if we do or not. Special needs, I just wanted to, the staff's working on some recommendations for special needs programming enhancements. I expect we'll be back maybe in September. The direction was to bring it back to the full board with staff recommendations. We are actively working on putting that together. I think I mentioned this before, the Rotary clubs, and I wanted to mention it, have reached out for some level of volunteer involvement in the Arroyo. So I'm still planning on setting up a meeting. We've got people coming and going, so August might be a better time to set that up. That is on the agenda, to get a meeting set up with Rotary to explore that idea that they have. Spoke about the Oak Park Committee meeting. I expect an item on the next your meeting in Oak Park with some items, follow-up items from their meeting that we can discuss at that meeting. The after-school clubs, we are currently we're currently trying to open all of them up to normal at all locations. That's our approach. Early indications are we're not getting the numbers that we had pre-COVID. So we may end up in a situation where some of the schools are going to have very few, or some of the after-school clubs may have very few students. I think our approach is to try to do that for the first semester. Again, we don't know when school starts and people sign up and get back to normal. So our goal is to have all of them open on campus. That being said, we may be, I guess it's not really losing money. We'll be subsidizing that, so to speak. So our plan is to open those, see how it goes, but we may be back to the board at some point, for the January session, kind of giving you an update on the participation and how that works for us financially. So, but our goal is to have them all open. There's a couple that the numbers are real short right now, so we'll see. We got some time, but we're working on that. The reason that's important also is because we have to staff up for all these locations, so we have to start staffing now. We thought we'd try to open them all, start staffing them up, give it 3 or 4, maybe up until mid-year, and then come back and make decisions on whether or not they're all still financially viable to have them at those locations. I'm hopeful that they will be, so we got to start the staffing. Rancho Radio and Radio CME. Josh?
Sorry to hop on that. Can you either tell me the schools that you're short on, or send me an email with those?
Yeah, it's the Knolls, Garden Grove, and all 3 teen clubs. So Sinaloa, Valley View, and Hillside. At least the preliminary numbers are very low. Now that could completely change once we get closer. What's that? When school starts. But compared to what people that had committed to the program in prior years, pre-COVID, we are very low on early registrations at those locations. Did you get those, Josh?
Yes.
Okay. The Ranch Radio and Radio CME, we're going to put a sign-up list in the board office. We're looking at doing the ranch board members, if you want, signing up to do that. I think it's the fourth Thursday of the month. So the idea is you go on there and you can tout what we got going on for the next month. And then Radio CME as well. We've got a sign-up sheet. So we're going to put that in the board office. You can sign up for it. The ranch is requiring a thing where you kind of let them know what you're talking about and kind of frame the conversation you want to have. So we're going to put these out there too, and then you guys can decide if you want to do that, or if any of you want us to help you with that, complete that form that they want from us. We can do that every month with the given board member. So I know some of you know what you want to talk about, and you could fill it out and send it over, and some of you may want to work with us on doing that. So the first one is July 28th, and Director Brian is going to do that primarily about our 60th. So he's got that spot locked up. So we'll put that up there and you can sign up for which ones you want to do. The geese at Rancho CME, if the board will, I'm sure you'll recall, we had a multi-point plan of which we've completed a lot of it, signage and things. One of them was for the goose brigade to put in a pen, which they said they would do by June 1st. That has not happened yet. I did talk to them last week, and they are still committed to doing that. They're cited some complications and timing issues and with getting that pen constructed in our park. They did talk a little bit about maybe not wanting to do that, to which I said, well, if you're not going to do it, I've got to bring it back to the board, because that was the direction we got from the board. At the end of the conversation with them last week, they're still committed to doing that. So I'm going to give them a couple more weeks to get that installed. If that doesn't happen, that issue will be brought back to the board.
Was part of the delay on our end? I understood that there was.
I've talked to both groups. I've talked to our staff. Our staff said no, it's not on our end. I've talked to them. They said it's on our end. So I don't know whose end it's on and why it was delayed. They're saying it was somewhat us. It sounded like it was some miscommunication maybe between the two, our staff and the Goose Brigade, but
there's some progress on it right now. I don't know about the completion date, but if you go down there, they've done some work on it.
Right, that's good, and maybe they started that last week. So I thought we'd give them a few more weeks, even though we didn't hit the June 1st deadline. They said they're still committed to doing it, and if they're working on it, that's good news, and we'll have that in place. Did that answer, Josh, anything more on the geese that you were curious of? We did get a letter. People were still getting the complaints about the goose droppings in the park. So we're still getting that. So if you'll recall, we were going to do the pen, we were going to do signage. Once we got the pen, we're going to start enforcing with the rangers and the staff some no feeding protocols and really kind of step that up, which will put us in position to potentially get the culling permit, say 6 months from now or so. So that's where we're headed. It's all working. If they get the pen in, it's all moving forward as directed by the board.
Josh, did that answer your questions?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Hummingbird Trail, I think I mentioned this, but there's a lot of people using the trail, and there's a parking issue over in the entrance to the, what's the ranch up there? Hummingbird Ranch. We've had staff, we met there with the city. It appears that there is some parking issues, so we're working on we're doing kind of a parking survey right now, but we may be doing some kind of the parking lot expansion or trailhead expansion. Obviously, we'll come back to the board if it ends up being significant. It may be just an expansion of the dirt lot we have. It may be done something a little more involved, but we'll bring that back to the board if needed. But it does look like having a trailhead there with some more parking would be a good thing to have. Yeah, it's really an informal kind of operation now. And
currently on the weekends, our one parking lot is definitely filled. If you park on the street, you can get a parking ticket.
Yeah.
And the construction's not even done yet.
And I understand people are parking on both sides, and you've got one lane of traffic through, and then that's when the ranch is having their events on a weekend. So you got folks parking one lane, and they might have an event up there, and it's not a good situation. So we are coordinating with the city on that and working with Tom to put together maybe a design if needed for a parking trailhead type of concept expansion change. So the fee study, we're working on that, either one of the two meetings in August. We said August 5th, I think originally, but that's in Oak Park. I was thinking August 19th. We got that budget over there that night. So either August 5th or August 19th. So we have reached out to the consultant to make sure he can meet those deadlines. So we're waiting to hear from him, but hoping to bring that back as directed.
And does that work for you, either of those dates?
Sure.
Linda Parks is doing a fire safety town hall with several people, and we're a part of that. So she's doing a little fire education out in Oak Park at our community center. So that's nice, and we're going to participate in that. So we're going to put this on social media. She's putting it out there, but we'll help her give information.
Who's participating in it? Like staff members?
We've got Ventura County Fire, Ventura County Sheriff, California Highway Patrol.
I mean, from our agent.
Oh, Wade will describe what we do for vegetation management and weed abatement and how we manage the open space relative to fire.
And that's this Saturday, is that correct?
It's on Thursday, July 22nd. It's on a Thursday evening.
Is anybody available for that or interested in from a board perspective?
I'd be interested.
Maybe.
I'm not. I won't be there. So if anybody else wants to join, Josh.
Josh, if you do plan on going, I'll probably let Ms. Park's office know that you will be attending if you decide to do that.
Sounds good. I will let you know.
Okay. Just a couple more here. The Rancho Santa Su project, we're about ready to bring conceptual options for staff to consider for phase 4 expansion. I was planning to go to the advanced planning committee first, go through there and then bring it to the full board. As we've talked about, we're not making decisions in the committees. We're talking about it, getting maybe some recommendations, but we'll bring back the full item to the board. So I was thinking we'd do advanced planning August, beginning of September, and then bring it to the full board shortly thereafter. So again, that'll be kind of that same process. We conceptually design, get the board's input, get that finalized, and then move forward with hiring somebody to design it. So
You'll give plenty of notice on the date and time in case someone attends.
yes, absolutely. Yep. I'll make a note of that. I have a scheduled vacation next week, so Teresa's going to be the acting GM for the week. Thank you. She can always reach me, but she's the point person for next week. Next board meeting is in Oak Park. We've got a change to their guidelines to allow the youth board advisory members, so that requires your guys' approval to adopt their guidelines. So that'll be on the agenda. Got the public hearing for the budget, and we'll have the second reading of the one-wheeler ordinance. So that's what we have on that agenda. August 19th, we've got the fee study, and we've got the, I had another one on there right now. This is 19th. The fee study is going to be it's going to take some time. So we got the fee study on the 19th right now. And then a couple of these other items you mentioned this evening, maybe we'll get on the meeting on the 5th or the 19th as well. And then committees, regular historical society, and I mentioned we will be scheduling an advanced planning committee, and I'll make sure the full board gets a notice of that, the date and time for that. So that concludes my report.
Is the Oak Park meeting public or Zoom?
It'll be in person with access by Zoom. It's going to be tough because the acoustics in that room are tough with Zoom. Remember we tried to do one out there, I think, with Zoom, and I had to sit at the table.
It will be on Zoom, correct?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed Ed's comment.
Ed said it will be on Zoom.
It'll be on Zoom.
Sorry, Brian talked over you.
Go ahead.
Ed was just confirming that the Oak Park meeting will also be on Zoom and in person.
Okay.
And I was smiling at our staff because they're going to figure out how to get that done.
Yes. That's all I have.
That brings us to closed session. Brian, do I read anything before we go into closed session?
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. We're going to have one closed session tonight. It's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95 that involves a claim. The claimant's name is Philip Shapiro, and the claim is against the district. You should ask if there's any public comment.
Is there any public comment on that? So what we're going to do is in a moment we're going to go into closed session. We'll be coming back from closed session. We don't have anticipated time for that, but you're welcome to hang out to come back after that.
Right, Chair.
We're back in open session. We have a reportable action. The board has voted unanimously to deny the claim from Mr. Philip Shapiro. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Our meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Have a good one, everybody.